The Hall of the Magi was where the Magi, the leaders of the guild, met in council. It was a fairly large hall on the third and topmost floor of the guild hall. It was rectangular, about 14 meters in width, and double that in length. The walls were richly decorated, and helical pillars stood at equal intervals along them. A mural depicting events from the Holy Scriptures ran along the uppermost part of the walls. The floor was made of polished walnut, the wood laid in an intricate pattern. 3 great arched windows looked to the east. Before the middle window stood a bust of Ithanor, founder of the guild and former archmage. Along the other walls ran tiered seats, 2 tiers in total. These were for spectators. Today they were empty. On the wall opposite the windows, passing through the middle of the seats, was the entrance. At the center of the hall stood a lavish table of polished oak, its sides carved to look like vines, its legs were dragons. The guild's symbol, an 8-pointed star, decorated it. Emran sat at the head of it, at the northern end of the table. The Magi were seated in chairs on his right and left. On his left sat in order Tevilithan, Adrilla, Tendel, and Halmar. On his right, Huldra, Alok, and Erilan. The 4th chair on his right was empty. It belonged to Magi Egil, who was late. The Magi were speaking amongst each other, their voices echoing in the hall. Emran was, however, deep in thought. His worry from the past day had not subsided. He yawned. He could barely keep his eyes open. Late night? Tevilithan asked. Yes, Emran said, yawning again. My brother is a good man, but he kept me and Thalen up too late. I only got, 4 hours of sleep. Count Renor has a reputation for parties, Tevilithan said, laughing slightly. Emran nodded. He will take any excuse to drink. Where is Egil? Magi Adrilla asked, more to herself than to anyone else. It's not like him to be late. Probably got stuck at lunch. The chicken was divine, Tevilithan said, chuckling. Adrilla's brown eyes showed no amusement. I know my husband. He wouldn't get stuck on lunch. The door opened and Magi Egil stepped in. The man was only a few years older than Emran. He had chestnut brown hair, which had begun to grey, strict grey eyes, and a long nose. There were bags under his eyes. My apologies, Archmage, for my lateness. It is fine, Magi Egil. Have a seat. Magi Egil bowed a short bow and sat himself down. Now that we are all gathered, we can get to the matter at hand. Magi Halmar? Halmar rose. He was in his 30s, had blue-green eyes, short blonde hair, and a neat mustache. Archmage, fellow Magi, I have finished my report. For 2 months I have gathered information. I have talked to guards, spoken to witnesses, of which there are sadly few, and read many reports. The thefts, kidnappings, and murders are all, as the guards suspected, connected. I suspect that there are at least 3 murderers working together. Their work is very similar, save for a few details. And the description of the kidnapper from the kidnapped are all the same. A tall, hooded man. Halmar stopped for a few seconds. Furthermore, and this is the most puzzling and worrisome detail of them all, the stolen documents and books have all been on one topic. It is found again in the kidnapped and murdered, who have all been interested in said topic. He paused again. Aniath Istin, the Starbow. It is clear to me that we are dealing with an organization with maleficent intentions. Their reasons elude me. That they are searching for the Starbow is clear, however. My report in full can be read in the library. Halmar sat himself back down. There was silence. It was Tevilithen that broke it. Ithin vaunath, aitas vuil, shar eth edu. This is dire news. After he had spoken, there was silence again. Then Emran spoke. The power of this artifact cannot be understated. I've already discussed with Magi Halmar on a course of action. To find the Starbow, to secure it. But the choice lies with the Magi. Magi Tendel, the youngest of the Magi at 33, shook his head. His hair was red and short. His eyes were dull green. He said, Archmage, Magi. I would think that Magi Halmar has overlooked a major flaw in his report. The Starbow would not be in this world. Nuvia would have reclaimed her weapon. To secure it, therefore, would be impossible. Tevilithen looked at him. Presently, he spoke. Starbow, rest here till I return. A translation of what I said before. Shemina left it somewhere in this world, Magi Tendel. And I wasn't talking about her, Tevilithen. I was talking about Nuvia. Tendel said with a sigh. Where Shemina left it matters not. Nuvia, as I said, would have reclaimed it. Shemina was an incarnation of Shai Nulai. It was with purpose that she left the Starbow. Tevilithen said, a more pious side showing. And are we to believe the tales of dark elves? Fanciful stories of impossible magics. They can hardly be considered fact. Adrilla interrupted him. Fact or not, we cannot just sit and do nothing. If Magi Halmar's report is anything to go by, we are dealing with a group that's ready to take lives to reach their ends. Magi Adrilla is right. Erilyn, who had remained quiet so far, said. He was a half-elf. His blonde hair was cut just above his shoulders. His grey-blue eyes were deep in thought. A conspiracy like that is very dangerous. Let us not forget the beginning of this guild. Without us, that cult would have... Well, I don't want to think about it. He was one of the present that had been there near 200 years ago. There was more arguing. Alok jumped in. The old man repeated Tendal's view. The Starbow is not on Eathal. I would think it is in this world, Magi Huldra said. The room fell silent. The Magi looked at her. The old blind woman, a strange woman indeed, smiled. Her grey hair was long and braided. There were strange runes tattooed on her left face, just behind the eye. Though she was blind, her eyes always closed. She could navigate about without trouble, and she always knew where people were, even if they had not spoken. She was also gifted with foresight, something that had come in handy before. But most intriguing was her age. Well, no one knew her age. She had been there when the guild formed, appearing just as old then as she did now. It is hidden from my sight, but that it would be found on Eathal, of that I am certain. The Magi were silent. Then Emren spoke. Let us put it to a vote. All four? Tevilithan, Emren, Huldra, Adrilla, Halmar, and Erilyn raised their hands. 6. All against? Aegol, Tendal, and Alok raised their hands. 3. That settles it then. This is absurd, Aegol began. But if it is the will of the Magi, then so be it. Tendal seemed equally unhappy. Alok's feigned indifference was not all that good. Then the question goes to whom we shall send on this mission. Emren said, I say we send Magi to Tevilithan. He is our best fighter, and he's used to adventures. Adrilla said. The dark elf cast an appreciating glance at Adrilla. I could not. In human lands I stand out like, well, a dark elf amongst humans. My presence on this mission would only alert this group of our intentions. Besides, it has been many a year since I went out on such business. I have fallen into the role of a teacher well. I would suggest perhaps Mage Beric or Mage Vatha. Both are excellent fighters and do well under pressure. Mage Beric has already promised me to help with some research this coming autumn, Adrilla said. But Mage Vatha, she could be sent. What do you think, Magi Huldra? She has previously helped you with your research after all. Huldra smiled, but remained silent. She would not get leave from her father. He would certainly not allow her to go into any danger, Alok said. His acting had not improved during the last few minutes. He was still unhappy with the decision. Many more names were put forward. Drennan, Tahila, Ruha, and more. And then Huldra spoke. I say that we should send Mage Thalen and Mage Taylor on this mission. The silence that fell was more silent than the grave. With all due respect, Magi Huldra, are you out of your mind? Tyndall blurted. We can't send untested members on such a mission, Adrilla said. It would be a scandal for the guild if either of them came to harm, Erilyn said. Duchess Lehon would be more than angry if her granddaughter came to harm. And Empress Illisti of Illyria would not be happy if anything happened to Mage Thalen. Nor do I think our esteemed Archmage would be so happy either. Their heads turned to Emran. He was silent, leaning his head on his hands. Why? Why would you want to send them on this mission? He said at last. The Magi are right, Huldra began. Thalen and Taylor are untested, and the mission is likely dangerous. But who amongst us were ready when we took our first steps into the wide world? Were you, Archmage? Why would I want to send them? Oh, I have seen it, of course. My sight shows me that they should go on this quest. The decision lies with the Magi, of course. But has my sight ever guided us wrong before? You speak much of your sight, Magi Huldra, Egil said. I am not convinced, though. Neither am I, said Tyndall. Tevilithan spoke. Thalen and Taylor are powerful, even more so together. And yet, we have dealt with insidious groups before. We know just how dangerous they can be. What say you, Archmage? Emran was silent. To send out Thalen, and Taylor too, yes, but his own son, into likely danger. He looked at the bust of Archmage Ithanor. The neutral expression of the bronze piece offered no guidance. What would you have done? Emran thought. At length he spoke. What have you seen, Magi Huldra? I know that you don't give such information lightly, yet I, not as Archmage, but as a father, ask you this. I cannot see his fate. Parts of the journey are clear, yet other pieces remain hidden. Then what good is your sight? Egil retorted. Huldra smiled and shook her head. Better than you would ever guess, Magi Egil. And what about the third wheel? Erilyn asked. What about Mage Pashara? As much as it ails me to separate the trio, I think it is best that she remain here. Yes. Tevilithan looked at her with a questioning look. Are you certain about this, Magi Huldra? Adrilla asked. Are you certain this is the best course? Of course I am. If I wasn't, I would never have taken it up. We shall put it to a vote. Emran said. All in favor of sending Mage Thalen and Mage Taylor to search for the Starbow. Huldra, obviously, lifted her hand. It was followed by Tevilithan's. He seemed a little uneasy. Then Halmar lifted his hand. Erilen, who had always trusted Huldra, followed suit. Adrilla seemed indecisive, yet she, slowly, raised her hand. 5. All against? Egil raised his hand. Tendel too. Alok was also swift to raise his. Emren raised his hand. 4. Emren sighed. It's decided then. The silence that followed was heavy. Halmar broke the silence. The only lead that we have about the Starbow is the research of my father, Helthur. Though from his notes there is scarce little information to be gained. I would suggest searching his last known occasion, the city of Dayrol, for a lead. I suspect the Grand Duchess of Dahlia will be very forgiving for Helthur's unannounced visit, and happily allow 2 of our mages into her land and city to search for his whereabouts. She will not be signing any papers. Egil said. She will not need to, Magi Egil. Emran told him. Egil looked shocked. Sending 2 of our mages to Dayrol unannounced? Did we not learn anything from the incident that Helthur caused? Secrecy will be of importance, Magi Egil, Halmar said. We cannot allow this nefarious group to catch wind of our intentions. And we must act swiftly. I am certain that they are already aware that we have been investigating their actions. And, as you said, the Grand Duchess will likely not be signing any papers. Then we are acting outside the law, Egil said, shaking his head. If things go well, no one will ever have to know, Emran said. And if things don't go well, what then? We create a major incident between Elrin and Dahlia, of course, Huldra said. His Majesty will be angry, but we'll let it slide in the end, just like last time. The guild is too important to the realm, and Dahlia holds little prominence on the world stage. The guild is important, yes, but that didn't stop him from almost abolishing the guild when he came to power, Alok said. But it didn't stop him, Magi Alok, didn't it? A bell struck. It was noon. Further discussion on the matter will have to wait, Emran said. I will inform Mage Thalen and Mage Taylor of our decision. I declare this meeting over." The Magi began to leave. Emran remained. So too did Tevilithan and Huldra. When all others had left, Emran let out a long sigh. "I hope you're right, Huldra. Only time will tell." "What is it precisely that you have seen, Huldra?" Tevilithan asked. "Fate, perhaps." Huldra laid a hand on the Archmage's shoulder. "You'll see."